Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am delighted that Mikki Meadows-Oliver is joining us for this interview. Mikki served as the NAPNAP president from 2013 to 2014. Mikki, thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's great to chat with you.
Well, I'm wondering if we could just jump right in and perhaps you could share with us what was your journey to becoming a PNP?
Um, well, I actually started a long time ago, 1993. I was an LPN. So while I was in college, I also served in the Army Reserve. And through the Army Reserves, that's where I was introduced to nursing. Um, and I became an LPN there. So I started as an LPN and I worked in a clinic in Brooklyn, New York that catered exclusively to children in foster care. So that's where I sort of developed my love of pediatrics. And also, when I was in college, like our college health center was staffed by nurse practitioners. And so that is where I became, I guess, knowledgeable about the role of nurse practitioners. And so I graduated college actually with a degree in psychology. And having been a nurse and having been exposed to those nurse practitioners in the clinic, like I really thought like nursing is something that I want to pursue. So after graduating college, I decided to go back to school to get my RN and then became a nurse practitioner. And so basically starting with that work in Brooklyn is where I decided I would be a pediatric nurse practitioner when I had to choose a specialty.
Excellent. Well, I love that. We have a common background actually in caring for children in foster care.
Oh, yes. Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so could you share your educational journey because you have collected a few degrees over the years?
Yes, I have. So as I said, I went to college, went to Barnard, and I got a bachelor's in psychology. And again, I knew at that time I wanted to become a nurse. So I went back to school to get an RN, and I actually have a certificate in nursing and not a BSN because I went to Yale's program and they don't offer BSNs to the RNs. So I got a certificate in nursing to become an RN, and then I got an MSN from Yale. So that's where I became a pediatric nurse practitioner. I also went to school and got a master's in public health as well. So I do have that degree. And then finally, I went to the University of Connecticut and I got my PhD in nursing. So yes, so I started as an LPN and then I went all the way up through and now I have my PhD in nursing. So it's pretty exciting.
That's a really amazing educational journey and how nursing has sort of followed this path right alongside you.
Yes, you're right.
I'm wondering now if you can perhaps share with us, what was your path to the NAPNAP presidency?
So originally, well, I guess I was involved in our state chapter for a while. So I live in Connecticut, so I was involved in the Connecticut chapter for a while. And one of my colleagues was on the NAPNAP, the national board, and she encouraged me to run for communications chair, which at that time, the board did not have members at large. We had sort of named positions. So it was like a communications chair, chapters chair, things like that. And so I ran for communications chair and I won. And so I served as communications chair, I think, for 2 terms. And so I think that was about 6 years. And then I rolled off the board because of term limits and things like that. And then there was, I guess, because I was so involved, I was still involved with NAPNAP on different levels, on different committees and things like that. And then I think it might have been Carolyn Montoya who reached out to me and asked me if I would consider running for president. And after thinking about it and after talking to my dean and everything, I decided at that time it was a good time for me to run because I had recently rolled off the board. And like I said, I was still very involved. And so I really just wanted to continue working with NAPNAP at the national level. So I felt like it was a good next step for me.
Mikki, I've done several of these interviews, as you know, and more times than not, everybody has said, well, somebody reached out, somebody encouraged me. Yeah, and the same was true for me. So it's so interesting to hear that you had the same.
Yes, I think it's so helpful sometimes because it's like, well, maybe it could be in the back of our mind, but then when, someone else thinks that we can do it and believes in us as well, like I really think that is so helpful and like helping move on the path forward. So I was very glad for that.
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little more about your term as president. And I'm wondering if there was a particular issue that you recall being sort of the utmost importance for the PNP profession and or NAPNAP during your presidency.
Hmm. So I think for NAPNAP, we had a few things going on. We were looking to, I think we had just finished doing what we call like the optimum board sizing. So where we reduced the number of board members that we had. And we were just introducing the members at large during my, not maybe during my presidential year, but probably during like the immediate past president year. So we were introducing that concept so we wouldn't have the named positions anymore. So I felt like that was big because we were changing the size of the board and then we were changing the way that the board functioned. So that's quite a bit of getting used to because people don't always like change. And so having to vote through that and discuss it and we had consultants. And so it was quite a busy time for us. And right around that time, as well as when we were moving from New Jersey to New York and opening the DC office. So that in itself was a big deal, even though as board members, we didn't have, as much to do with the day-to-day logistics. It was still, I think, big for the organization that we were relocating from New Jersey to New York and then opening a satellite office in DC as well. So those were like the big things with NAPNAP. And then I think with our nurse practitioner profession, honestly, I feel like some of the things that we were looking at then, like 10 years ago, are still things that we are looking at now, like funding for nursing education and making sure that everyone who is able to has full practice authority. As I was thinking about these questions, I was like, wow, this is 10 years ago. And like, we're still actually, trying to get full practice authority and like throughout the country. And it's, something that obviously we're still working on, but like that has met resistance and has still not happened. We're still fighting for funding. And, I know funding is a tricky thing because there's only so much money to go around. But, just to think about that a decade ago, these were some of the prominent issues that the profession was facing. And, here it is 10 years later, and we're still facing some of these same issues. So it's interesting.
You're so right. And it just really illuminates how slow progress can be.
Yes, excellent point.
Yes. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to share just a touch more when you mentioned the board restructuring, because that was a very, very significant change. And, how did that perhaps come about, or sort of what was the motivation behind that?
So we had been, like I said, we had already done the board sizing, and I think we were doing strategic planning, and we had some consultants in. And one of the things that, one of the consultants mentioned was that, as boards evolve, they evolve to more of a more governance board. And what he meant by that was like, we were very much what he considered a working board. Like I was communications chair. So I worked with certain people at the staff to do, I worked on position statements at that time. We were having actually printed brochures because it was a while ago. It was like 2009, I think, when I first started. And so we had printed brochures that we had to make sure were updated. We had the position statements we were doing. So a lot of these things, like I was focused on that. And then Raji at the time was like the chapters chair. So she would focus on just the chapters. And, so we had like these specific tasks. And while it was working, the consultant, sort of had us think about like, if we wanted to be a board that was governing at a higher level, we needed to leave a lot of the day-to-day work that we were doing to the staff. Like we have a very competent staff and, we know that they can do the work, and not a specific position needed to be overlooking or as a liaison to each staff member. And so he helped us to realize that we could govern and function at a higher level without these named positions if everyone was, like just considered like a member at large or board of directors or however we wanted to name them. And so that is it was quite a bit of work to get through, but through that process is how we came to realize that, we were ready to evolve to the next level, to not have these named positions, but to have everyone working together for just like the good of the overall organization. And while we still would have liaisons to different groups, like we would be a governing board and not so much of like a named position working board. And so I think overall it's been a great transition for NAPNAP.
I think that is some invaluable institutional knowledge that sort of gets lost because we have such turnover of board leadership given those term limits. But you're right. I mean, today our board is very much a strategic board where we leave operations to the staff. And I think that's an area where people perhaps aren't prepared for that when they move to the national board. They come from chapter leadership where it's very operational, and then you move to this board and it's very strategic. So I
think that's why it felt so comfortable for us to stay in those positions as we move from chapters to national. And I think that's why, when we were talking about it, there was a little bit of hesitancy because it was like, many people, if you had not been on other boards, because some other boards were already functioning like that, and some people were on other boards, some people weren't. But if you hadn't been on other boards, you had not been in a place where, as you said, like we were functioning strategically, you've been in a place where it was more operations. And so it was just very hard for people to wrap their heads around it.
I agree, but it also is such a nice signal of sort of NAPNAP stepping into a larger stage and a larger position of influence. So. Well, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and ask if during your presidency, was there a particular healthcare topic that was driving advocacy and policy efforts during your time?
Let's see, a particular healthcare issue. Honestly, let me see. Trying to think about healthcare issues. I did kind of think, I think I was mainly when I was thinking about healthcare issues, I still think at that time, not a specific pediatric issue, but as I mentioned, like for funding and full practice authority, I think at that time also, like not every state had prescriptive authority. And like that was something that we were working with our representatives in Washington to try and help our state members to, see what they needed and how we could push that forward. So I remember prescriptive authority being a big thing at that time as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like really a large focus in your term was both workforce issues and having a presence in DC, and then sort of situating the board for this larger sphere of influence as time went on. Is that fair?
One of the workforce issues that I remember being very prominent, because we met with, I guess every year the president probably meets with like the leadership from AAP, from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And one of the things that came up was just in general, fewer people going into pediatrics in advanced practice nursing and in medicine. And one of the things that we talked about in nursing was that, many undergraduate programs are either decreasing their pediatrics or getting rid of it altogether. So students are not even being exposed to the pediatric population in their undergraduate programs. And because of that, it's like fewer people were going into PNP programs. Also at the time, and I think this is something that's still ongoing, is that people see FNP as more marketable. And so we were sort of competing even within schools to get people into PNP versus the FNP program. So I feel like that was like a major workforce issue that was going on, just the decreasing number of people who've been exposed to pediatrics and undergraduate. And so that just sort of decreases the pool of people who would be interested in graduate education as a pediatric nurse practitioner.
Well, you're right. Earlier you said a lot of things come full circle, and that's certainly something we're still contending with today. Is that constrained pipeline, and when you layer that on with sort of the fallout from the pandemic, it's a real concern right now as well.
Yes, the program that I teach in, like the students have 6 weeks of pediatrics, in their whole BSN program, and so it's often not enough to to expose people and get them like super interested in it. So we have an uphill battle still.
Well, I'm wondering now if we'll turn our attention to something perhaps a little more positive, and that is, is there any experience that really sticks out as particularly memorable during your presidency?
Um, I think that mainly it is, I don't know, just really being surrounded by like so many dedicated nurse practitioners. It was just amazing, honestly. Like, it was amazing to see just people who wanted the profession and the organization to flourish. And I don't even just mean like on the board. I remember as I was president and I was at the conference, like so many people came up to me with their ideas about like how they thought that, things could be improved at NAPNAP or things could be improved in practice. And I was really glad to see that people were invested and engaged and not just sitting on the sidelines. And so I really feel like that was my most memorable experience. And I think the conference really solidified it for me because like people really had a lot to say, and people literally followed me to the bathroom like when I was at the conference because they wanted to tell me things. So it's like the conference was just full of people who I felt were like so dedicated and like just really sort of wanting to see NAPNAP and the profession flourish. And I was really glad to see that. So that I think was, as out of all the things that happened in my presidency, was the thing that stood out for me, is like how people were so engaged and how they wanted to make sure that things went well, and they weren't just sitting on the sidelines. So that was, I think, my most memorable experience.
Well, I love that. I mean, it's really a testament to this like professional community that we've generated. And I will also say, Mikki, it's also a testament to how approachable you are. They are able to engage with you.
People are going to be following you in the bathroom.
I'm going to make a note of that. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, looking back on NAPNAP's first 50 years, what is something that you're especially proud of?
I think that I'm most proud of just how far we've come as a profession, like how we've been able to unify and come together around like specific issues to advance our nursing profession, and then also to advance pediatric healthcare. I think that there's so many respected clinicians who are just fierce advocates locally at their state level and on Capitol Hill that just sort of work together to push our issues forward. Even though there may be some things that we disagree on here and there, I think that I'm just especially proud of like when it really needs it, that we come together and we work together to, further a specific agenda. So that's what I'm most proud of. I think about these first 50 years.
Well, I think that's spectacular, and I couldn't agree more. All right. So I'm curious now, Mikki, if you might offer some advice for our emerging and future NAPNAP leaders.
Oh, this is an interesting one. I think that I would, I think that there's a couple of things I think like, this is in general too, like just to try to be yourself, be honest with yourself. And then I think that if they can figure out like what their passion is, like figure out what your passion is and pursue that, like try to align your passion with your purpose. Cause I really think that that helps people to just be engaged and, thwart maybe a little bit of burnout, because it's like, well, you're working for something that you truly believe in, that you truly care about. And it's not just something that someone tells you is important. So it's like, if they can align their passion with their purpose, I really feel like they have like really fruitful and satisfying careers in nursing and advanced practice nursing.
I agree. That's a wonderful recipe for success.
Yeah.
So now perhaps we can turn this inward. And I'm going to close with asking you if you could go back in time and share some wisdom with your younger self, what might that be?
I think one of the main things, or several of them, would be just helping myself to realize that maybe it's not okay. I mean, it's okay to not know everything. So it's okay to not know everything. I should not be afraid to ask any questions, use my resources that are available, not be afraid to say, I don't know, because I think in the beginning there was so much that I didn't know that I was kind of thinking like, maybe I should know that. And so it was a little tough to sometimes say, I don't know. Whereas now I'm like, I'm pretty comfortable saying like, I don't know that. Let me look it up. Let me talk to someone. But obviously that's with having how many, like, this is like my 25th year as a nurse practitioner now, because I graduated from my program in 98. So now in 2023, this is 25 years for me. So it's like, I'm pretty comfortable saying, I don't know now, but like looking back, I think that my younger self would, I would want her to realize that, what, it's okay if you don't know. It's okay that you don't know everything. And it's okay if you ask people questions as well. Like, I feel like would maybe a better nurse practitioner, and then also certainly would help out with patient care. So I think those are the main things that I would think I would tell to my younger self.
I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people.
I hope.
Well, Mikki, I wonder if there's anything else that I haven't asked about that you were hoping to share with our NAPNAP community.
Well, I just think that, after, I guess I've been involved with NAPNAP for so long, so I'm just still so glad and grateful to be a part of this organization. I still work, I'm the legislative chair at my state level, so I'm still involved with the state chapter. I am involved on committees in NAPNAP. So I think that I'm just so grateful and glad to still be involved and a part of this organization. And I guess I would just want people to know that we want people active on the national level. So even if that's not on the board, if you can get involved in a committee, if you can, be more involved with a SIG and be a SIG chair, I just think it's a great organization to be a part of. And it's a great stepping stone to sort of further professional and personal development in the advanced practice nursing world.
I think that's excellent. And it's just a testament to how NAPNAP really can walk alongside you in that personal and professional development.
Sure.
That was beautiful.